He's also designed God of Carnage for us, which was a stunning design, and A Long and Winding Road, which was the piece we did with Maureen McGovern, which, and then I can't believe you've dressed Susan Lucci, so we're gonna have to talk about that. You've dressed two of my favorite divas.
Oh my God.
Chip has won 4 Daytime Emmy Awards for his work in television on Another World, All My Children as the World Turns. I did give up it was like crack for me when I was in my 20s. It was crazy. So I want to talk about Susan Lucci. But also is directed regionally, extensively, and in New York. In Boston, he's worked with New Rep, Speakeasy Stage, and the North Shore Music Theater, and the Underground Railway. What did you design for them? Do you remember?
I think that was Lydia Diamond's play.
It was, right,
It was,
okay. Harry Jacobs?
Harry Jacobs,
Great,
yeah.
Fabulous. And you're on faculty at Bennington?
Yes.
That's quite a commute.
I have to go there tonight.
Wow, okay, we won't keep you too
fine.
long. But what I want to, in a upcoming edition of Spotlight, you did an interview with Lisa Timmel, and you guys went lingerie shopping
we did.
as part of your research for Venus. So why don't we launch in with a conversation about women's lingerie?
Okay. And are we going to tie that into Susan Lucci?
Yeah, we'll tie that into Susan Lucci later.
Okay.
But how you're preparing for the Venus and for design, and what your process has been like with Danny Goldstein, who also directed God of Carnage.
So the lingerie, it's this young actress comes into the room, she's late for an audition, and everybody's gone except the playwright/director. And basically, she takes her clothes off. It's like, really? You're taking your clothes off now? And she puts something else on. So the underwear is important. What she comes in is important, and then the underwear is important. And it does have, I'm not sure what the right language is here, but there is sort of a
They know me.
dominant kind of quality to this character.
Right.
Right, and the setup is that this playwright has written an adaptation of this sort of famously sadomasochistic, in fact his name is Macher. Yeah. So there's this masochistic quality to it that kind of develops as they're reading the play. Anyway, so that's the sort of feel for the underwear. So Lisa was like, well, let's go to some sex shops. And I was like, okay. I think there's one in the South End. I walk past it all the time. I've never been in it. So I said, let's start there. So we go to this place on...
That's still open on Tremont?
No, it's gone.
I thought it was gone, yeah.
It's gone. So I was like, oh, great. Now what do we do? So I said, let's go to La Perla. Because working in daytime television, you sort of learn a lot about high-end underwear. They're always taking their clothes off too, of course, right? So we go to La Perla, and it was fantastic. In fact, one of the first things was a bustier. I can speak freely here, right? We're all friends. With no cup, like with a little ruffle, and then a pasty. Lisa says to the salesperson, well, how long do the pasties work? And she said, well, I don't know. I haven't worn mine that many times. So, and so that's like, whoa, this is La Perla. And then there was like a display with a whip. So, I don't think we can afford La Perla, but the feel of that was right. And then there's another store I think it's on Newbury, that we went to called Agent Provocateur, which also had fantastic stuff. So I sort of salvaged the shopping trip, and I learned a little bit about...
Did you buy anything for the show?
No, we not yet.
No, you haven't done any fittings, right?
Not yet.
But you have ideas.
We're not here yet, really.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun.
What's the big difference between working in television and stage for you? How are they different, or are they not that different?
Well, it is different, because in television, in soap operas anyway, it's a runaway train.
Right.
This is all about finding the right thing and then putting it up on stage, and that's it. The show's frozen. And
Right.
you work the detail until you get it right. In TV, especially in soap opera, you don't work the detail.
Right.
You get the look, and it's like, you maybe have a rehearsal that you're in the booth watching, and you can maybe run out and tweak it.
Right.
You
get one shot.
Yeah, and then it's gone, and nobody else is going to see it. Maybe
Right.
my mother would watch them, but once it's done, it's done.
Right.
So it's a runaway train. But the other thing is, we used to, in those days, we had a decent amount of money to spend on clothes, for different characters. I could shop at Bergdorf's.
Right.
And Saks and, Marshalls, because there's different characters. So.
Right. Right. There's
A
what's
real
her name?
range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you stayed at the Pine Cone Inn, you were one kind of.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you really know this
Yeah, I
stuff.
really know the show well.
Part of the Pine Cone.
What's your hit in Boston, sort of on the theater scene right now? Like, what's your you've worked in this kind of market for a while. How's it changing? How's it evolved over the years?
Well, I haven't. It's in the real long term, because I am 100 years old. In the real long term, I don't feel like I've been here that long.
Right.
So my perception of the sort of small-sized theaters was, and I still sort of feel this way, is that a lot of times I feel like they are not doing the shows that they want to do. They're doing the shows that were done in New York.
Right. Got it.
And, sometimes as a designer, I feel like, let's shake it up a little bit.
Right.
Let's do something that people in Boston want to see, that may be a classic, or it may,
Right.
maybe from just like, hey, we have this great actor, let's do this show for
Right.
them,
Right.
So I feel like that kind of stuff.
Sometimes there's a lack of programmatic freedom.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and that is a generalization.
Right.
It doesn't always hold true.
And what about your relationship with Danny? How do you guys like to work together? Danny's the director, both for Gone of Carnage and for Venus.
Well, basically, I call, if he asks me to do something, I'm like, great, that's fantastic. I love working with him. And then we have a couple of quick meetings, I'm like, where are you? Like he was at the Goodspeed, and I was like, all right, I'll drive to East Haven,
Right.
So that's what happens.
It's fun
Or
meeting
I
on the
drive
road.
to New York
Yeah.
and meet him in New York. And
Right.
we schmooze, and he tells me about the cast, who he's
Right.
really excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. Really excited. Questions?
Susan Leach.
Yes, Susan Lucci. Yeah, do you want to hear Susan? What's your best Susan Lucci story?
So I had just started working on
She
the
was
show.
one of the leads on All My Children.
All My Children.
And it wasn't until the very end of her career that she finally got an Emmy. She was always the bridesmaid, but never the bride.
That was the year I.
And I bet she was mean to you because of that, because you had
was
4.
She was not mean.
She was really nice.
She was so nice, and she was really fun to shop for. She's like, a sub-2.
She's amazing.
And she loved
Exactly.
clothes. So anyway, but I hadn't been working on the show that long, and the wardrobe person who I'd worked with for a long time in another world had just come over to All My Children, which was great, because these are the people you need to do this
Right.
kind of stuff, right? So Ellen is there in the wardrobe room, Susan's dressing room is there, my office is across the hall, and all of a sudden I hear like shouting coming from Susan's dressing room, like, and it gets kind of high pitched, and
Never a good sign.
all of a sudden the door to her dressing room opens, and a telephone comes hurtling down the hallway, like those big old hardwired telephones go, whomp, and just sort of thump, thump, thump down the hallway. And Ellen is standing at the end of the hall where the telephone sort of lands, with her eyes like this, and I'm like, I think I need to get a producer up here right away. Something's going on. And it's like frustrating because it's the time of day where you can't get somebody on the phone, which it turns out that was Susan's problem. She wanted to make a schedule change. And, the kid who answered the phone put her on hold or something. And so it was frustrating.
That's a
for her.
problem.
So I saw her in the hallway a little while later, and I was like, are you okay? And she was like, oh, I just feel so bad and I'm so embarrassed. And I said, why? You didn't hit anybody with the telephone. But I'm not
and you
usually
gave her
that
something
quick,
cute
but
to
it was-
wear. Yeah.
Oh, she always had
Yeah.
cute clothes.
She always looked great.
And we could buy Valentinos for her
Right.
for that show. It was great.
Yeah, it's great.
It was, yeah, she wouldn't fit. She wouldn't try the clothes on. You had to show her the clothes on the rack. And she'd go, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And then we had somebody who had a mannequin that was her size. And the things she liked would get altered for her on the mannequin.
That's amazing. That's great.
And everything needed to be altered because she was so
Great.
little.
That's so great. Any questions? Yes.
I want to know what happens to all those clothes that
Well, once I started dating Neil here in Boston, you have to, sorry?
when I get to be a scientist.
When you get to, so you would have to clean out, you know, and the characters' clothes that you thought you could use would go into stock, which you would use to dress under fives and extras, background players, you know, and so you'd maintain a stock. So you'd have your working wardrobe for all your characters, which on these things there were like 30 contract players. And then upstairs in our situation, there would be another whole wardrobe stock for stock that you would pull. And then you'd clean out stock periodically. And my partner Neil, who was living here, did some work for the Pine Street Inn. And the Pine Street Inn had a program where they were helping people get jobs. And they needed clothes for people to go to interviews. So that was one place that some of the clothes went. I would just pack up boxes and send them up.
Wow. That's great.
And then winter coats, you know, because winter coats take up a lot of space on racks, so you would have to weed them out. So, you know, there were some issues with the production company thinking, you know, oh, they could get money for this stuff, and it was like, let's just send them to somebody who can use them. That's where they should go. So they would let us do that.
Other questions?
Not the Valentinos.
I was just going to ask, do you do a lot more modern and today kind of clothing? And if not, what do you like? Do you like to say, do you think it's something that's period, or do you really like to do things that are more modern?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I mean, I love modern dress, but 20 years of it was nonstop for 20 years. And that's a lot of one thing, you know, that's a lot of the same dinner or whatever. And so now I love doing period stuff. In fact, the class I'm teaching at Bennington tomorrow is costume history.
Great.
You know, which is hard for me because hasn't been my working knowledge
Right.
for all these years. But when I get to do period plays, I just really love it. You know.
Great. Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you all
You'll
very
be
much.
seeing the work on stage.